be able to stay home, brother. You will not be able to plug in, turn on, and cop out. You will not be able to lose yourself on Skag and skip out for beer during commercials because the revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be televised.
You know, Gil Scott-Heron is having an exceptionally relevant time, I think. In fact, this is the second time we played that song on our show in about 2.5 weeks. Anyway, we are talking today about the revolution, televised or otherwise, as it is depicted in One Battle After Another, the 11th film by Paul Thomas Anderson, one of our notable modern auteurs. A little bit later, we're going to talk about another auteur, Sterlin Harjo, who's got a series on Hulu called The Lowdown, an Ethan Hawke vehicle, and much more as well. This is The Nose. Oh, before I get into that, too, I want to just remind folks, or tell you maybe, on Monday night, October 13th at 7 p.m. at the Hartford Stage, we're going to do a show about Alfred Hitchcock, and it's going to go with their new production of Rope. And it's free. We'd love for you to come. We're going to be recording the show, and we'll be live on stage, and there'll be guests, and Ileana Douglas, the official movie star of the Colin McEnroe Show, will be there. So go to ctpublic.org/Colin to RSVP. It's free, but you do need to get a ticket. So I know that sounds odd. Okay, so to talk about the Paul Thomas Anderson movie, One Battle After Another, joining us now is James Hanley, co-founder of Cinestudio at Trinity College. Rich is going to be with us later. Sean Murray is a stand-up comedian, writer, and the host of the Fantasy Film Ball podcast. And Irene Papoulis, who wrote a short textbook called The Essays Only You Can Write. And you have to get it if you want to be able to write essays. Otherwise, you will not be able to write essays. And how is that going to feel? All right. So maybe just before we get the discussion going, let's hear a little bit. You'll hear two of the stars of the movie, Leonardo DiCaprio, who plays Bob Ferguson, and Benicio Del Toro, who plays Sensei Sergio St. Carlos, who we meet kind of in the second half of the movie. You're going to hear... Leo DiCaprio in this movie spends a lot of time talking on the phone and trying to get his phone charged as well. That's like a big problem. Anyway, here we go. This is A1, please.
Rise and shine.
Hi. What's up? What's up, homie? It's me again, Bob Ferguson. I don't know if you remember, but we spoke earlier on the phone. I think we had a little misunderstanding. I think we got off on the wrong foot. I was trying to get the rendezvous point for my daughter,
right.
Willa.
If you can't answer what time is it, I cannot give you the rendezvous point. This is a key tenet of the rebellion act. I'm surprised you can't name it. I don't know if you are who you say you are.
Okay. Well, look, maybe I can give you some information, and then you give me some information, all right? We'll just share a little information. My name is Bob Ferguson. I don't know if you've ever heard of me, all right? I was part of French 75 for years and years, all right? They used to call me Ghetto Pat, Rocket Man, stuff like that. Only problem is I fried my brain since then, man. I have abused drugs and alcohol for the past 30 years, man. I'm a drug and alcohol lover, and I cannot remember for the life of me or the life of my only child the answer to your question, what time is it?
8:15.
Now, I need this rendezvous point. You understand what I'm saying? I need it.
I understand. And the question is, what time is it?
So that comes in the second half of the movie. The first half of the movie arguably is about sex, and the second half of the movie is about parenthood, which often follows on the heels of sex. But it's about so much more. It is about, in fact, the aforementioned revolutionary movement, French 75. They seem very throwbacky, kind of 1974 kind of revolutionary resistance operating roughly about 16 years before the present. So that's the first half of the movie. You see the circumstances under which a child is conceived. You see a lot of other things happening. You see this resistance movement being pushed back at by other forces, which we will talk about as we go along here. And then in the second half of the movie, it kind of picks up the story, and a child has been born and is now 16 years old. I guess I got to stop talking and get the panel going on this. So, James Hanley, maybe just get us started. I mean, I want everybody just to give a little overview of how they feel about this movie or what's standing. This is going to be a big movie. I think it's going to be talked about for a really long time. But James, what are you thinking about in terms of this movie right now?
Well, it's interesting to me that I mean, when I saw the movie yesterday, and I just was like, I couldn't form thoughts about it. I found it very disturbing, and it made me think about a lot of things. My own experience with demonstrations about the Vietnam War, and thinking about now, and also reading stories about the hideous behavior of ICE agents just so many things came to me. I almost didn't want to talk about it, but today I sort of have a sense that I think it's kind of an extraordinary moment that here is actually a filmmaker who's made a film that actually touches on a lot of the issues that are happening now, and whether people do anything about it, whether they can do anything about it, and how you process the information that is flowing to us. And it's a very sort of rough-edged movie, but I think Paul Thomas Anderson is the kind of person who wants to get the movie out. And the extraordinary thing is that it's coming out under the Warner Brothers distribution. The fact that after all of the capitulation by various entertainment industry people, corporations, that this film is coming out and it actually is seemingly finding an audience, I think is extraordinary. And I think, for me, certainly, it made me really think about what can I do about what is happening now? What is my role personally, just as an individual? And the rough edges of the film sort of didn't matter. There are lots of sort of, kind of holes you can pick in it, the odd bits and pieces about it. But overall, it has this powerful impact that just completely transported me and emotionally and intellectually.
Yeah, and I want to come back to you later, James, about it finding its audience, because I think this is a movie that kind of plays into one of your theories about how movies can find audiences. But Sean, you want to build on that or take it in a different direction?
Hello, Colin.
Hello.
I also thought, I also was kind of not disturbed like James, but a little shocked to see the movie just even open with it, like addressing, immigration camps, for illegal immigration, and because Paul Thomas Anderson has not been made a contemporary film in so long. So for him to come back and to start his film with just directly addressing what's going on in the world right now was pretty surprising. And I agree with James that there's some holes, some flaws with the film. I guess with like any film. I think when I look at it, this movie, it's just like a testament to how great a filmmaker Paul Thomas Anderson is, where it's like he's juggling a lot of stuff, a lot of ideas, and a lot of, different like movie stars and themes, but he keeps it all together, maybe just barely, just by the strength of incredible film.
Okay, I'm going to cut away from you for just a second because we're having a little bit of a tech issue with you. I should also say, by the way, the movie stars Leo DiCaprio, Sean Penn in a remarkable performance. I'm sure we'll talk about Benicio Del Toro, Regina Hall, Teyana Taylor, and in introducing a really remarkable performance by a young woman named Chase Infiniti. There's some other interesting casting choices too. But Irene, let's go over to you. I think you had a slightly different set of reactions to some of the reactions I've heard.
Yeah, and actually I went to see it. I love Paul Thomas Anderson, who's, I would say, my favorite director because of what I feel like he speaks. He has a way of going into a depth of emotional truth that just like completely resonates with me. And so I went on Friday and I was rather disappointed by it, but I felt like I hadn't given it enough attention in the very beginning, especially because I was in a place that was serving dinner and we got a little distracted. But so I went and saw it again yesterday. And my opinion evolved a little bit. And my original reaction kind of, in a way, connects to what James said, in the sense that I wanted it to be the kind of movie that makes everybody feel as James did, like, what can I do? What can I do to stop this? But I felt that instead it was kind of making fun of things that were sort of familiar to make fun of. Oh, the revolutionaries who were just all over the place, and they can't get it together, and it doesn't really work, and they're using violence, and it doesn't really, is it really going to make any difference? And I didn't like that. I wanted it to be more serious. I didn't think it was funny to laugh at them in a way. But when I saw it again, I felt a little bit more more open to what it was trying to do, in the sense of people really wanting to make a change and feeling like they want to make a change. And by the way, Colin, I really appreciated your summary, because it's so hard when people say, what's it about? It's so hard to sort of explain what it is about. So in a way, you have to see it in order to really know what we're talking about. But yeah,
and can I just not push back exactly, but just say, actually, in response to everybody's comments so far, I think it's a little bit misleading to people to say that it's mainly about revolutionaries or resistance or, what that's all like. Because I think this movie is working on a lot of different levels. And it certainly is a movie about parenting. And Leo DiCaprio, who I believe is not a parent and has never been a parent and very likely will never be a parent, does a remarkable performance about being a dad. I think there's a lot of things going on in the movie, and it's also quite funny at times. I don't think it's intended to be taken entirely seriously, although it has serious points to make. So, Irene, I don't know, in some ways the litmus test that you had at first anyway, is this, and it isn't How to Blow Up a Pipeline or whatever that movie was called, is this a really good depiction of resistance? Well, I'm not even sure, and I think you're sort of suggesting that after your second viewing, that that's Anderson's goal.
No. I don't think that's his goal, but I think that is, you can't help but make that because it's in the context that the political context we're living in right now. I mean, but it occurred to me he didn't really start the movie or start making the movie during he filmed it during the Biden administration, and it would have been very different, I think, if we hadn't actually, like, some of the things that were just seen as kind of exaggerations for comic effect are actually more, from the other side. I mean, from the people with the power. The white supremacists are actually a little closer to reality than definitely Pynchon ever thought, who wrote the original novel that the book was very loosely. Very loosely. Yeah. So
I think actually Anderson has said that he had 3 different ideas for 3 different movies, and one of them was adapting Vineland as a movie, which he's been thinking about doing for more than 20 years. But he took all 3 of his ideas, Vineland being only one of them, and managed to sort of get them all together into this movie. So yeah, and James, I mean, we should say also that when this is something we've talked about a lot on the show over the years, creative people see around corners pretty well. This isn't even the only movie that's out right now that's about putting people in cages that are not exactly jails or prisons. I'm thinking in particular of the Superman 2025. Superman also, winds up in this place where people are being held with no due process and no charges and stuff like that. And James, maybe it's a testimony to the ability of creative people. Yeah, I mean, he would have finished this script by 2022 probably, or at least the main first investable draft. It's pretty impressive that he does see so well what's coming.
Well, it's true, but I think also I have a feeling there were some last minute shifts in how they actually put that story together. Certainly that he would have been likely, I think, knowing him, he would have been likely to find a way to do that. And I think that the film does feel a sort of sense of immediacy about it, that I mean, you can certainly, it's documented that during the Biden administration, there were huge numbers of deportations. This has been going on for a long time, but it's just emerged now with people who are actually making an issue of it to say they're proud to do it. And they love to throw people on the floor and to haul people naked in the middle of the night out of their apartments. I mean, this is something that the film happens to be being released at a particularly critical time that is perhaps providing some sort of a catalyst for people to think, well, is this something that I can do something about? Is this something that really is, it represents a real situation? I make this point because I think that it doesn't fit in the category even of a movie to me, in the sense that, movies, you tend to think, okay, well, who's in the movie? Who's written the movie? Who's playing the movie? This had more of a sense of actually a reality connection that doesn't often happen in film. And when it does, I mean, I think of something like the Battle of Algiers, for example, which features in the movie, actually. He's watching the Battle of Algiers on TV. I mean, this is something that really has a capability to reach people in a different way, I think. And it certainly reached me in a different way. And I think that is a discussion now that's going to take a different trajectory for a lot of people.
Yeah, you know what, Sean, one thing that we're kind of papering over here is how freaking exciting this movie is. And I mean, for all of the political overlay and undertone, and for all of the lessons about sex and love and parenting, I mean, this is a movie that if you were thinking maybe you'd get up and go to the bathroom about halfway through the movie, you're probably not going to be able to do that because the movie speeds up. There are multiple unbelievably interestingly shot chase scenes, which we don't really associate with PTA that much. So, Sean, maybe we should say something about just how freaking exciting this movie is.
That's something I definitely want to talk about, because it's one of those things where, like, when somebody's a really great filmmaker, but they don't operate in certain spaces for a long time, you kind of just feel like, okay, either they can't do that or they don't want to do that. And then someone like PTA just steps up and like, oh, I could just do this whenever I wanted to, and it would be as engaging as anyone else has ever made it look. Like, it's like the way he shot the final chase scene, not to give away too much, but it's like, I've never seen a chase scene shot that much, because it wasn't even like a lot of like bending corners and super fast. It was just like the way it was framed, and is these two cars coming up over this hilly terrain, and it's the most engaging thing. And then the sort of climax of it, how he decides to get out of that chase scene, is such a creative thing, not only as from a directing standpoint, but also like what it means for the characters involved in it, like how that character solved that problem is so brilliant. It's like, I mean, it's a 2 hour 45-minute, 2 hour 50-minute movie, and it's really not a good spot to ever go take a pee break. Not that I ever do take a pee break in a movie. I think that's insane. Pee before the movie. I don't understand.
Really, you're old. But I made it. I made it all the way through. In fact, PTA put up a list, I think it's on TCM, of 5 films to watch before watching one battle after another. One of them is Battle of Algiers, which James just mentioned. But another one was The French Connection. Probably not only because of the chase scenes, but not because of the chase scenes either. And Irene, one thing we haven't had a chance to talk about so far are the performances. And we could talk about Leo. We could talk about Regina Hall, who's one of my favorite actors and doesn't really, I don't think, get enough really great roles. Teyana Taylor and this young woman, Chase Infiniti. But I'd just like to take a moment to talk about Sean Penn. I just didn't see this Sean Penn performance coming. We should say he plays this Colonel Lockjaw, who is both a racist and someone who is sexually obsessed with a black woman, and a guy who's also dying to get into this incredibly weird, bland white supremacist organization called the Christmas Adventurers. But I don't know. I'd love to talk about Penn if you'd like to, Irene.
Absolutely. I mean, he embodies those contradictions that you're talking about, like his lust and his just the way he walks in the movie is so
Mm-hmm.
striking. I thought, even just, he sort of walks like a stereotypical military guy, but also you feel like there's something wrong with his body and he's going to fall apart any second. So he has like a swagger but his face, the way his face gets transformed, I mean, you almost don't even recognize that Sean Penn that we know. Because the pain, the sort of the secrets and the pain and the way he reacts to situations in which, people are referring to things that he has deeper secrets about. You can see on his face what he's thinking behind the facade that he has of listening and of the sort of military bearing that he tries to affect, that he doesn't quite do it. And he sort of imagines like the ambition that he has, it's so hopeless, the quote ambition that he has, but he has it so intensely and so strongly, but it's in conflict with his feelings, and it's in conflict and there's that one scene where I can't say what it was, but he sort of, he couldn't really enact what he wanted to enact, but he did sort of, and just all that is in his face. And I didn't, he is a great actor, and he just like, this was just a master performance, I thought.
I agree.
And the makeup they did on him at the end was pretty amazing too.
So I agree. Hail Santa. James, I do, because this is something you and I have talked about in the past. This is a movie that did $22 million, I think, domestically its first weekend, which is a nice amount of money. Certainly nice, way more than Paul Thomas Anderson movies tend to do. But you've talked a lot in the past about how films need to sit in theaters for a while so the audience can find them, and so there can be word of mouth. And I feel like this is a word of mouth movie, right? This people are going to see this movie and convince 5 other people to go see it in a theater.
Yeah, absolutely. That's true. And it's also evident in the timing of its release, which is in the time that is before the big tentpole movies of the end of the year start coming out and grabbing time in the November and onwards. This gives it a chance that some theaters will keep it on screen and allow it to develop. It's very important with word of mouth to really have that development time, which is measured in weeks. It's probably the most famous example is Brokeback Mountain, which was very carefully released and ended up staying in theaters more than a year. And this, I think, word of mouth will carry it. I don't see anything else coming along, really, that's going to challenge it for a while. And the fact that Warner's is willing to keep it in theaters, it seems their plan is to keep it in theaters, is a very hopeful sign. And they may well succeed with this.
We're going to have to sort of wrap things up here. There's so much more to say about this. I do want to say that I salute Irene for having already gotten back to it. This feels like a movie that you have to see twice at minimum in a movie theater, and maybe one more time after that. There's a lot of really interesting stuff that's done with cameras, which I was unable to absorb because I was too caught up in the plot. Johnny Greenwood has written one of his usual interesting, occasionally rather minimalist scores, which I couldn't really pay attention to because I was too wrapped up in the plot. And the last thing I do want to say, let me just bring this up with Sean before we go. At a certain point, and I just wouldn't think that Paul Thomas Anderson would be doing something like this, but there did seem to be kind of an homage to the dude going on with Leo being with his kind of dad bod and his bathrobe. He plays the second half of the movie in this kind of ratty bathrobe. And I thought, is this like the Mid Lebowski or something? I mean, I don't know. They couldn't have not talked about the Big Lebowski on the set, Sean.
Oh, this is undeniably, there's no question. Even if on a lie detector, Paul Thomas Anderson told me he wasn't influenced by the dude, I would call him a liar, because there's no way. It's absolutely the dude.
All right. So I'm glad I'm not the only one thinking this. We're going to grab a quick break here. We're going to say goodbye and thank you so much to James in Zurich, where we now keep all our Corporation for Public Broadcasting money. That's a joke. That's a joke. Don't send anybody here. And we'll take a little break. We'll come back and we'll talk. We'll add a new panelist and we will talk about the Lowdown.
God, it's so painful. Something that's so close is still so far out of reach. Oh yeah, alright. Take it easy, baby. Make it last all night. She was an American girl. I like the city, but not as much as Tulsa. See this green country living calls my name.
Yes, we're going back to Tulsa with the series The Lowdown. Joining us as a new panelist, Rich Hollant. He's a new panelist to the show. New panelist to the episode today, Rich Hollant, founder and principal of CoLab, a Hall of Fame designer and co-partner at Center, all caps. The Lowdown is the second television series created by Sterlin Harjo. The first one was Reservation Dogs. This occupies somehow the same fictional universe. And it is the story of... well, how can we say this? It's the story of a struggling, scuffling, self-styled investigative journalist at an alternative newspaper played by Ethan Hawke, who's also a used book dealer and is also kind of a, like Leo's character, he's a girl dad, and how well he's doing at that is kind of debatable. But he gets swept up into a whole conspiracy-driven set of plots. We should say also, we're only 3 episodes into it. That's how many there are. We know, for example, that a whole important character, we know it's important because it'll be played by Peter Dinklage. We don't even know the name of that character, or that has not been released to the outside world, but that's coming. So we're kind of just getting our feet wet with the Lowdown. But I want to do what I did the first time around. But let's start with Rich. I don't know, how is this series landing with you, and what kinds of things are you pulling out of it? What are the ideas that are reaching you?
So this series is nailing it for me. I am completely hooked. I didn't have a chance to see when the next episodes are releasing, but I'll be first in line to watch them. Ethan Hawke has literally been ripening for this role. I've been watching...
And he's pretty ripe in this role. I mean, you feel like he's kind of stinky for, a lot of the scenes.
Absolutely.
Anyway, continue.
You smell him right off the set.
Yeah.
I've been watching his these talks that he's been giving on acting, and it all just sounds like a little academic, and then I see what he actually does with these ideas, and it's mind-boggling. He's completely believable in a wildly exaggerated character, and he's the director's actor, and it's working here. In every tiny little bit part in this series comes alive. So important to note for me is that this series is set in Tulsa, and there is this subtext, an interesting subtext that I've been picking up that's moving through this journalism-based movie, is the subtext of racism and power. And to set it in Tulsa ends up making Tulsa one of the characters in this series, and very much so. It's tapping into things like the Trail of Tears and like that 1921 race massacre in Greenwood of Black Wall Street, where an entire community that was thriving was bombed by white folks, a Black community. and so there's this role that I see that the black and brown people are playing in this series so far, where they seem to be pushed to the background, and they're talked about more so than they're talked with, and I'm fascinated to see how those threads start getting richer and richer and start moving forward. Um, it's beautifully shot, right? And that the characters in this movie reach a kind of mythic scale. It's the creation of mythology, and yet the light intentionally makes them ordinary. So there's this tension between the scale of these characters and how they come across as common. That's another thing that I'm enjoying watching evolve as this film goes on,
So
as this series
I
goes
want
on.
to switch over to Irene here for a second, and also get to Sean here. But Irene, you had certain dissatisfactions with one battle after another. Somehow or other, some of those needs got met, as I understand it, as you watched The Lowdown.
Yes, absolutely, and I agree with basically everything that Rich said. And I'd also add that it's kind of one thing that's so fun about it is that it's kind of like Northern Exposure or Twin Peaks, and of course Kyle MacLachlan is in it also. In that it's a story about a town where there's a diner and people go to the diner and they see each other, and it's a small town life that sort of it feels like I want to go there. I want to hang out with those people. And West Hartford just isn't like that at all. And so there's something about the town itself. Yes, the history that of the Tulsa massacre definitely seems like a backdrop of it. And at the same time, it's just about a bunch of quirky, interesting people talking to each other at the same time. And I found that really sort of charming and engaging, and the acting is amazing too, and that really helps. And the writing too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Sean, how about you? What are you thinking about right now?
I'm mainly thinking about how much I enjoy I don't know if it's just Sterlin Harjo himself or just FX ability to get this cast. Like, he's got everybody in this thing. Tim Blake Nelson, Keith David, obviously Ethan Hawke. Like, it just goes on and on. And I think it's very cool to see Ethan Hawke specifically, because I don't think of Ethan Hawke as like one of the great actors, but he's like always been an actor I appreciate more than I actually like. But then I think about the projects that he's in. I always love him, whether it's the Before trilogy, whether it's his role in Reservation Dogs. Like, he's always doing something really interesting, even if I don't think he's like the top tier actor. So then, like, I think this suited role, because you get to see him kind of just being very loose and fun, and just like a rambling kind of like local like pest to some, and then like a charming person to others. Like,
Yeah, I want to just jump in here and say that initially,
like 10 episodes.
Oh, there you are.
Seasons. This.
Oh, you just cut out again. Let me just jump in here and just say a couple of things. One of them was, just for me anyway, at a certain point I thought, because I like Ethan Hawke and I tend to watch anything that he's in, I was kind of having the reaction, this might be more, this is a lot of Ethan Hawke. I mean, he's just there a lot. There aren't a lot of cutaways from Ethan Hawke, and he's always getting beat up and then washing his bloody face up in a filthy bathroom in a convenience store or something. And I thought, but I am absolutely enjoying this. My other initial reaction was, because Reservation Dogs, I believe, benefited from some creative input from Taika Waititi, who's kind of a master of whimsy. And I thought, I kind of missed the whimsy. But I think they're getting there now. And they even have, and this maybe is a Sterlin Harjo thing, you have like a couple of side characters who are almost like a Greek chorus, but kind of making fun of stuff. I think it was Lil Mike and Funny Bone in Reservation Dogs. Here, I think it's two characters named Waylon and maybe Henry, who are nominally bodyguards or something, nominally security, but they're doing this kind of very funny running commentary which I'm enjoying a lot. Yeah, I mean, Rich, we should actually talk a little bit about the bad guys here. And I know you haven't seen one battle after another, but the bad guys are kind of consistent from movie to movie. They're kind of smaller change here, but you just get the feeling that there are these rich, white, and probably pretty racist people who are trying to have their way with this community. And I just wondering kind of how are you dealing with the bad guys right now? We should say one of the bad guys is Tracy Letts, who's actually from Tulsa. He was born in Tulsa, grew up in Tulsa, playwright and actor Tracy Letts. But go ahead, Rich.
It's really kind of interesting to me that that they seem to initially set up almost all of the white people as bad guys. And then they figure out whether they stick with that or whether they pivot from there. In particular, I'm thinking of Kyle MacLachlan's character. This is a dark dude, you know. Mm-hmm. He's full of power, and he wields it with an aristocratic detachment. Where folks go out and do his bidding for him, and he seems like he will never get dirty. And I suspect, I mean, I don't want to give it away, but this show starts with Kyle's brother dying, and the report is that he died of suicide, but the camera cut to outside of the house at the moment of his death. So we don't actually really know if it was suicide. There is this menacing quality that sits underneath all these folks. And I'm going to equate that completely to where we are right now in our national discourse, right? There's stuff that goes on, but will it ever track back and stick to the people who have power?
All right, let's grab. I just want to play a little clip here before we run out of time here from the Lowdown. This is Tracy Letts as Frank Martin, one of the aforementioned villains, and then Ethan Hawke as the ever-present Lee Raybon. Here we go, B1.
My antique guy, Ray, tells me that you've been trying to get a hold of me for a while.
Yeah, I'm super interested in that church pamphlet you have.
Yes, it's very special. Martin Luther King himself signed it. It was at a North Tulsa church. That's no longer there.
Yeah, I know. That's why I think it's important that pamphlet go back to the community where it belongs.
Come again?
Yeah. See, I want to ask you a question. How did you come by that pamphlet?
Interesting story. My grandfather had an employee.
And he gave it to you. Right? Exactly. Now, can I ask you something real? I've been doing a little research on y'all, and I have some concerns.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, tell me about those.
Well, first off, I'm curious why you're buying up black-owned businesses in North Tulsa. That's a little weird.
Developing business opportunities is part of our business.
Yeah, or it could be about consolidating and killing the competition, which is bad for the economy and the people in North Tulsa.
You have big balls, Lee.
I do.
The bad news is we do have some other business to attend to this afternoon, so...
I hear you. Don't have to tell me twice.
You didn't think you was going to get your hands on that pamphlet, did you?
Sometimes you gotta wave with one hand while you're getting what you want with the other.
Okay, we're short on time here, but I do want to say a little bit more about this. And Irene, I've kind of alluded to this, but these two things, One Battle After Another and The Lowdown, they're similar in a lot of different ways. The bad guys are kind of, there's kind of a dingy private supper club is in this thing is taking the place of the more glossy, fancy environments where the Christmas adventurers meet in one battle after another. But also this girl dad story. We have Ethan Hawke and Leo DiCaprio playing these not entirely successful dads who, on the other hand, seem to be trying their best. I don't know. How did you process all that?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking they're both, the white guy with morals, and the white guy with morals is always a mess for some reason in his life. And I'm hoping that it's not just Ethan Hawke as the white savior of everything, but I also do want to say that the way that he pushes back is through journalism, and that is in a really important part of the revolution, quote unquote. And I think it's kind of funny that he says, whenever they say your newspaper, he says, no, it's not a newspaper, it's long form journalism. And an investigative reporter, and that is the way to fight. That is a very powerful way to fight those people, is to expose them, because people don't like it. And so I felt like, there's that kind of resistance in there that is, I think, wonderful. And he owns a Where bookstore, so it's like, we should read, we should do investigative journalism, we should support it, and that comes through too.
Sean, another kind of theme is that these two hero protagonists, they're not really up to the job in a lot of ways. They're not the kind of hero protagonists we're used to. We've got Leo with his dad bod and his dude bathrobe, and he's so burned out. He smokes so much pot that he can't remember important passwords from the past. He's really kind of not up to the job of doing this kind of thing. And, Ethan Hawke, it's the same kind of thing. At one point he gets locked in a trunk of a car and he doesn't know how to get out. And much later, a character wonderfully played by Killer Mike says, there's a lever? There's a lever, and they all have levers. There's kind of a sense that he's not Jack Bauer. He's the opposite.
Oh, absolutely. But that's kind of one of the things I like about both of it. It's like the spirit of both of the characters. Like, I'm not equipped to do this, but I'm doing it anyway. You know what I mean? And I kind of feel like that's not always a good thing in life, but like, I think we do need more people like that to kind of just like, because, even like some of the great revolutionaries weren't like, actually born to be revolutionaries. They just decided to step up when it was time. I'm not necessarily calling either of the characters actual revolutionaries, but they have the spirit of them for sure.
Yeah, we need them. All right, we've got to stop there, but it's called The Lowdown. It's on Hulu. You can check it out. We'll go to a quick break here, and then all of our panelists will make some recommendations. And it's time to say some thank yous. We'll start with Gene Amatruda, the Jedi Master. He is our technical producer today behind the scenes. The maestro Dylan Reyes has been pulling some sound and stuff like that for us. The episode's produced by the great Jonathan McPants, who always produces these episodes of The Nose. We are going to do some recommendations right now. We're going to go back to James Hanley, and he's going to get us started. James, what are you recommending?
Well, actually, I have 3 books. I'm still obsessed with learning more and more about trees. There's a book by a writer named Harriet Ricks called The Genius of Trees, which is a sort of comprehensive history of trees on the planet and how they actually function in the landscape and how they affect weather. It's absolutely riveting book to me, and really gives you details about why trees look the way they do, all kinds of interesting stuff. Then there's another one that's actually been out for a little while. I picked up The Race for Paris, which is about women photographers in World War II as they were moving with the advancing armies towards Paris at the end of World War II, by Meg Waite Clayton. And then lastly, The North Light by Hideo Yokoyama, a Japanese writer writing about an architect. It's really fascinating, and for me, I found it a fascinating journey into a different culture. It's very well translated. The North Light by Hideo Yokoyama.
Well, those are great recommendations. Irene Papoulis, why don't you go next?
Okay, I also have a book. I've been reading a lot of novels lately, and I'm always looking, and they're good, but I've been looking for like a really good novel, really good novels, and I read one recently, and that I'm recommending. It's called The New Life by Tom Crew. And sometimes I worry that younger people aren't reading and writing novels that I'm going to want to like, but he's in his 30s, his early 30s, and he writes for the London Review of Books, and this novel is sort of historical in that it takes place in the late 19th century during the time when Oscar Wilde was jailed. And it's about the life. It starts with a very sexy opening scene that pulls you in, and then you get lost in the great writing. It's just amazingly beautiful writing, and it gets you to understand. Got me to understand something of what it would be like to be a gay man in London when there was a law against that, and what it would be like. It's so good.
So
Anyway.
let's go. By the way, it's books. I should say one thing about the Lowdown. It's kind of an infomercial for the crime writer Jim Thompson. It kind of made me want to go out and get 3 of his books and go right through them. But so Sean, why don't you go next, and then Rich will close us out.
I'm gonna continue the sort of book train here. I just read a great novel by the Russian novelist Yevgeny Zamyatin called Widest, a science fiction novel about this sort of future society of humanity that's sort of given up freedom as a way to conform to like the new world order. And it's about this character who's kind of like he's documenting his life, and he comes across a woman in this society who is sort of breaking down the order of society slowly, and he's kind of at first opposed to her, and it slowly becomes like enamored with her. And I think it's really applicable to right now. And then the other book I was reading is Guy Debord's The Society of the Spectacle. It's from 1967. Really prescient and still applicable about, like, a sort of a capital Marxist sort of critique of capitalism and how everything is just images and passive consumption now. And I think it applies as more than it did in 1967.
All right, Rich Hollant, you're going to finish it up for us.
I want to recommend the play English by Cinestudio that's at TheaterWorks right now. A couple of weeks ago, I got to spend some time with the Iranian director and the cast that are bringing this play to Hartford, and they're warm, it's charming, it's funny, and it's set in an English language classroom in Iran, and it's to me, it's about 2 things that I really love to think about. It's about identity and belonging. And it features what I'm going to say is my favorite character in a play ever, the spoken word. And highly, highly recommend it. I haven't seen anything put together quite like this. And I think it's like a Pulitzer Prize winner or something like that. I don't know. I think so.
I'm hearing it's been extended through November 8th, so people can have a chance to get to it. I would very much like to get to it. Cool. I didn't expect to have any time to make a recommendation. I guess what I would do is, since we're talking about books, I fell back in love with the early work of Cormac McCarthy, and I was doing some long driving back and forth up and down Connecticut and late at night, listening to All the Pretty Horses, read by this guy Frank Muller, who reads this Cormac McCarthy prose, which is essentially poetry, like it was poetry, and it's just so fabulous. And McCarthy, you know, those 3 so-called Border Trilogy books, they are just remarkable, and it just, you know, one of the things that makes you realize is that No Country for Old Men benefited immensely from the source material. I just think most of the dialogue probably is almost word for word, because the other thing McCarthy does when he's not writing beautiful descriptions is he writes incredible dialogue. So, and those are kind of essentially the 2 jobs. Anyway, thanks for listening today. Thanks to this wonderful, wonderful panel. We're so happy to have James Hanley back, Rich Hollant, Sean Murray, Irene Papoulis. Thanks to you for listening. We'll be back next week.
Cool place to hang out. Yeah. It's cozy, like a Cracker Barrel. Yeah, we all be laughing, talking, joking, talking about this and talking about that, and talk about everything as a matter of fact. Oh, about Torrington, Vernon, Danbury, Waterbury, Alderberry, Woodbury, hitting on New Britain, Vernon, I already said that one, Avon, Farmington, yeah, 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 yeah.